So the judicial structure essentially comes from the constitution. Unlike our political structure, the judiciary, yes, it is federal in the sense that we have 3 tiers of it, but they are more pyramidal, and like with the Supreme Court at the top, then come the high courts, and then at the lower courts you have the district courts, which encompass all your higher subordinate judiciary as well as the lower subordinate judiciary. I'll just explain a bit what each of those comprise. So the Supreme Court is the apex court. It is the top constitutional court of the country and essentially has governance and administrative powers which can run across all states as well as districts. The orders and judgments of the Supreme Court are binding across India under Article 141 of the Constitution. After that come the high courts, which are established again in every state, or sometimes multiple states can have a singular high court. For instance, the Bombay High Court, amongst other places, has its jurisdiction over Maharashtra, Daman and Diu, and Goa, with benches in different places. So the high courts are essentially the top courts over the territorial jurisdiction that they exercise. If it's a singular state, then all the district courts within that state will be coming within the ambit of the high court, which means that it will have supervisory and control powers, authorities and powers over these district courts. Similarly, then we come to the last tier, which is your subordinate judiciary. Now, the subordinate judiciary again can be roughly divided into the higher subordinate judiciary and the lower subordinate judiciary. The exact composition of these, or the degrees or the divisions of judges which comprise these, are a separate thing. But essentially, these are the 3 tiers of the judicial structure. So the district judiciary, like I mentioned, has 2 main divisions in it. There's a higher subordinate judiciary and then the lower subordinate judiciary. The higher subordinate judiciary is essentially the district and sessions judge, which is the highest trial court, you can say, in the state, except for certain high courts which exercise trial jurisdictions, which are basically in Himachal Pradesh, Delhi, Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay. Yeah, so the district judiciary or the subordinate courts are basically divided into the lower subordinate judiciary and the higher subordinate judiciary. The higher subordinate judiciary is essentially your district and sessions judge, which is the top tier trial court in a state. The lower subordinate judiciary will have different tiers. Now, one thing to remember here is that essentially it's the same judge who will sit either in a criminal case or a civil case. The only thing that will change is his or her title, depending on what kind of case he or she is listening. So if it's a civil case, then your lowest tier will basically be the civil judge junior division. And on the criminal side, if you're listening to a criminal case, then the equivalent of that is a judicial magistrate. So the same person who's the civil judge junior division will sit as a judicial magistrate in a criminal trial. In the civil case, these civil judges during junior division are responsible for listening to like low pecuniary value cases where the stakes are not very high. And on the judicial magistrate or the criminal cases, again, these are basically cases where the sentence is menial or it is less than 5 years, and those are the kind of criminal cases that these judges can listen to. Now you come to the second tier, which is slightly above the civil judge junior division or the judicial magistrate. You will have additional civil judge or the senior civil judge senior division, depends on what states you're in, and they can differently label it. In these cases, the civil judge senior division will become the chief sessions judge on the criminal side, and their jurisdiction expands a bit. They will now listen to more serious criminal charges where your sentence can be up to 7 years. They're not capable of listening to death penalty or capital punishment cases or anything which includes or allows for a life imprisonment. Coming to the top tier, that is your district judge on the civil side and your sessions judge on the criminal side. Now, these are judges who can essentially listen to all kinds of trial cases. On the civil side, the pecuniary value varies from state to state, and they can listen to, depending on what the pecuniary value of that trial court is, they can listen to cases up to that. And similarly, on the criminal side, they can listen to anything, including cases where the death penalty is involved.
Good.